I'm a fan of playing big music. It looks impressive, it sounds impressive, and it's pretty easy to play. Let me show you. Right, so there are basically two versions that you can play of this. The first version being a little bit simpler and the second version being a little bit more complicated. We'll start with the first and then we'll move to the second in a bit. So where we're going to start? We're going to start with our thumb and our little finger on A and E. Just rocking back and forth. And ideally we'll play this 4 times in a row. 1, 2, 3, 4. If you can't play at my pace, make sure to slow it down, find a pace you're comfortable with, practice that, and then slowly speed it up over time. So, A and E. Now A and F. Slight stretch with a little finger. Again, play those 4 times in a row. Now A and D, so that's going to be 1 and 4. Nice and simple so far. And then we've got A and E again for 2, and then B and E for 2. Sounds like there's a lot going on, but trust me, it's not too bad. Let's break it down again. A and E 4 times in a row. 1, 2, 3, 4. A and F 4 times in a row. 1, 2, 3, 4. A and D 4 times in a row. 1, 2, 3, 4. A and E twice in a row. 1, 2. B and E 1, 2. Makes sense? Let's do it again. I won't speak over the top of it, but I want you to think about where my fingers are going, how close they are to the keys, and how there's no gaps between each of those different parts. That's what you need to be aiming for. Then we've got to add in the left hand. The left hand's nice and simple. Find the lowest A on the piano with a few notes below it. I know that there's an A down here, but that's too low. We need a few below it. And put your thumb on that A. That's where we're starting. So A and E in the right hand with an A in the left. Then when we go to A and F in the right, we're going to go to an F in the left. Sounds pretty good. Then when we go to, A and D in the right, we go to a D in the left. Then we've got the the shorter bit of A and E with an A in the left. Then the shorter bit of B and E in the right with an E in the left. Once more, because of course it does sound a little bit complicated, but it's not too bad. So remember, 4 times of A and E with an A in the left. 4 times with A and F in the right with an F in the left. If you're doing it right, the left hand shouldn't have to move at all, just move your fingers. Now it's an A and a D in the right with a D in the left. A B and an E in the right with an E in the left. Oh, sorry, no. An A and an E in the right for the short one, then a B and an E with an E in the left. And it should sound like this with no pauses. Remember, you can play it slowly and slowly speed it up over time. There's no point rushing because all you're going to do is make mistakes. It's easier starting slow and building it up over time. So that's basically version 1. You can learn that and it sounds pretty good. But let's take version 2 now, and we're going to forget the left hand. We're just going to add more notes to the right. Now, instead of A and E rocking from sort of the outer edges of your hand, we're now going to go from the outer edges in, like that. That's really exaggerated, but you'll see what I mean. So when we play the A and the E, we're going to add a C in there. So now we're actually playing A and the E at the same time and rocking with our middle finger to the C in the middle. With a pedal, sounds pretty good. And remember, I sort of showed that. That's an exaggeration, don't do that. Trying to keep your wrist steady and let your fingers do the work. So that's your chord 1. Now remember, we went to A and the F in the first version. That's what we want to do this time, and keep that C in the middle. So that's pretty good. And again, 4 times in a row. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now keep that A and the F, but change your middle finger to a D. There we go, that's working. Remember, we went back to A and E last time for a little short one, so let's do the same thing again. 1, 2. Now this is the last difficult chord that you might have to do, is shuffle your hands slightly up the piano, so your thumb is resting on the G sharp, second finger on B, and the little finger on the E. And that's your final one. Just play that twice as well. That's when, remember, we were playing B and the E in the first version. Now we're playing a more complicated version of G sharp and E, and rocking onto the B with our second finger for the fuller version. So let's go through that once more. A and E with C, A and F with C, A and F with D, A and E with C for a short version, then G sharp and E with a B for another short version. Let's play that once more with no talking. See how that all flowed together and there's no pauses between any of it. Make sure that you practice those transitions, otherwise that's where the pauses are going to appear. Okay, so now let's add in the left hand. We can start with the basic stuff that we learned from earlier, and it's going to follow the exact same pattern, so I'm not going to tell you what it is. You should know it by now. Just like that, it already works together. I'm a broken record, but always play it slower than I do until you've built up that practice. Now, you might notice that occasionally I change what fingers I use. So on this one, always 1, 3 and 5. On this one, you can stick with 1 and 3 if you want, and the 5, but sometimes I might do a 1, 2 and 5 because it feels a bit more comfortable. Choose whatever works for you. You might find sticking with the same fingers means there's less for your brain to think about, or the comfort of choosing that second finger means you'd actually prefer to do it that way. There's no right or wrong answer, it's just whatever's going to make it sound the best when you perform it. Right, so we've had the left hand playing individual notes. Let's build it up like what you heard at the start of this video. We're going to play octaves in the left hand, just like this. Same notes as if we were going to be playing it individually, but now they're spread out, little finger and thumb. Big stretch, don't need to worry about keeping your fingers resting on the keys because you're going to be moving them a lot, and it's just going to go A, F, D, A, E. Very similar to what the individual notes were, but it sounds bigger and better. Let's add the right hand. Pretty good, but you heard at the start it was even bigger. Now, every time your thumb, yeah, let's make that rule. Every time your thumb plays in the right hand, your left hand has to play as well. But it's still going to move around. You'll get what I mean when you listen to this. See? It's just big, bold, epic, and there's not a lot of thought that goes into it. If you really want, you can start changing octaves. And it still works. You can change while you're playing. And the more you practice, the more you're going to get that muscle memory so that you don't even have to think about what you're doing, and you can speed it up, slow it down, change the octaves, and soon you might start playing stuff that doesn't even make any sense. It doesn't really work if I do this, but you can tell that I'm not having to put too much thought into it because I can speak over the top. That might be a good point to know that actually you might want to move on to something a little bit more complicated. Right, this is how you're going to practice for the week. Step 1, learn the 2-note pattern so that your right hand can rock nice and evenly using a metronome. Make sure you start slow and slowly speed it up. Then you can add in the left hand with those individual notes and join them together, making sure to keep it nice, neat and even. If you don't want to move on to step 2 just yet, you could even do the more advanced left hand while the right hand is still playing those individual rocking 2-note patterns. Step 2 in some ways is easier than step 1. All you have to do is just play the right hand, just play those 3-note patterns and use a metronome so that it's nice, neat and even. Make sure that you don't include the left hand at all until that right hand is so confident you don't even have to look at it while you play. Then you can move on to step 3 where you're going to add in that right hand alongside the left hand, probably starting with the individual notes first that you learned in step 1, and then add in the octaves to make it sound big, bold and epic. Use that sustain pedal and make sure you use a metronome to keep that timing steady. So thank you very much for watching, and if you want to find the last lesson in this series, it's in the description below. But of course, if you liked the video, give it a like. If you want to see more of this sort of content, make sure you're subscribed. And if you want to make sure you never miss another lesson, hit that notification bell, because I'm releasing lessons every 10 AM UK time on Saturday mornings. I'll see you then.